Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends, it is my great pleasure and honor to welcome Your Excellency Asif Ali Zardari, President of Pakistan, to the World Economic Forum special meeting on economic growth and job creation in the Arab world. Mr. President, particularly in the midst of today's challenges, global challenges, national challenges, it's a great privilege that you join us at this meeting, focused on fostering regional economic stability and growth, employment, education, and entrepreneurship. Pakistan possesses great potential for future growth. While its geographic location provides access to two of the fastest growing and largest markets of the world, Pakistan's own domestic market also holds an immense possibility with the world's sixth largest population of 187 million, which is also very young, with a median age at less than 22 years old. In fact, your government's recent announcement, Mr. President, to liberalize the bilateral trade relation with India signals the importance of collaborative power, not only on a regional basis, but also it's a good signal in the global context. Yet today, Pakistan faces many challenges. Years of economic stagnation coupled with high inflation remains a major roadblock to prosperity, while last year's devastating flood has destroyed a large portion of an already strained infrastructure. While I'm pleased to mention that Pakistan has moved up in the ranking of the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Index this year, the report also highlights the need for strengthening the country's institutions and for improving general health and education. Mr. President, more than ever, not only here in Jordan, but indeed the world looks at Pakistan. It looks at Pakistan to help to confront the new realities in which we live, for shared peace and prosperity, for mutual respect, steering a course towards long-term stability, not only among governments, but among all people. With this in mind, we all look very much forward to hearing from you how you see the role of Pakistan in shaping the future. Mr. President, welcome to the stage here.
Whatever you say. Thank you, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, Assalamu alaikum. Indeed, Pakistan is blessed with its natural location and geostrategic position. We do happen to be on the fault line of the world, and the world has seen Pakistan suffer not just the changes in climate, which some of you may or may not know, that Pakistan happens to have the seventh largest peaks in the world. That means we have the glaciers that will be affected by international environmental effect, and therefore the floods last year and in fact even this year. In spite of that, we are a resilient nation, and we have a roadmap for the future, and the roadmap entails we being the shortest route to all the energy corridors of the world, to the two largest economies, as you just met, of the future. And the future, as some people would have it and the world would describe, is going to be an Asia world. In order it to be an Asia world, our belief is that Pakistan is the force multiplier which is needed to all the region and the regional countries to come up to the position of what their desires or the world desires of them, to be an economic giants, whether it's India or China or other nations. So it has great future in our energy corridors. The world is talking about the Silk Route that again today leads from Pakistan and the Pakistan ports and onwards to energy-starved nations and energy-rich nations which are landlocked and blocked. If you look at the China Sea and the Arabian Ocean, you look at half of the Indian cities and half of the Indian markets, half of the Chinese market, our ports are closer to them than their own ports are. So taking this in mind, the population growth, not very long ago, the world thought the Chinese population was its biggest curse. Today we all know that Chinese population is the engine that drives their economy. So the population growth, and especially with us where we have 65% of our population is the young of tomorrow, and these are going to be the engines of growth for the world, where the world economies that are doing better for itself, like India, and the brain drain that happened in the last decades is now going back. The workforce is going back to India. There is a vacuum in the world which I hope that our younger generation will fulfill. And the women emancipation, the education, and the world becoming, in fact, a village, more so today than it was yesterday. With tomorrow's technology at the tips and hands of every young student, and it's becoming a global world. And indeed, it is producing global individuals. Very soon, and I hope sooner than later, where people will become universal citizens. In the universal citizenship, Pakistan has a role to play. Pakistan has a future, and therein lies our strength. Even today, our revenue, half of it comes from the workforce that we export abroad. We have managed in Pakistan, and we believe in converting all adversities into opportunities. The flood that you talk about, Your Excellency, last year, or even before, the war that is going on against a mindset, we have taken all of these into and converted them into opportunities. We have managed to make a population count. We have brought in the women of all the IDPs. By IDPs I mean internally displaced people, because when we were starting the war started the war in Swat, we ourselves did not realize what the effects would be. From it came the population migration of people and citizens. When we got these women and boys and kids and children in the camps, we immunized them, we documented them, and those women are now recipients of a program which is named after my late wife, Shahid Mohtarama Benazir Bhutto, called the Benazir Card, in which we empower women only. The women of the household of the poorest of the poor get a certain stipend, and further on we've put other products on that highway by making that card tool of interaction. We've given telephones so they can get that money on their phones. So not only are we giving the women the little subsidy to their household, we are also giving them a voice and communication. So all of them, and it just so happens that when this program was introduced, the first recipient of this program was a lady, and we documented it because now modern technology is what is supposed to guide the future. And in that, the first recipient was a lady, and she did not disperse all her money. We were giving them X amount of money on a card which we had for specially affected people of IDPs, and she withdrew only the amount she needed. So that gave us the signal that this is what the world is all about. Whether you're educated or whether you're not, you do understand the necessity of tools to be used. So all this is indeed the strength of Pakistan, and we intend to use it for the future, for the world to be a better place, for Pakistan to be a responsible country, and be able to export and be in place when the world needs, because half the population of the world is in the minus. Half the population of the world is working on different fields. It is easier for us to produce and cheaper for us to produce doctors, for example, than it is anywhere else in the world. And we have the homegrown universities which are now old enough to be mature enough to produce doctors and nurses and future scientists, if you may have. So that is one aspect of Pakistan.
Mr. President, thank you for describing the economic potential. I think you have a country with great people, great minds. You described it, and we all know it. I mean, we meet in our travels around the world always. Pakistan is characterized by extraordinary potential. Now, let me just ask you one question. If I switch from the economics more to the political situation, Pakistan is a very important country in terms of global stability. And of course, very often Pakistan, rightly or wrongly, is criticized for its role inside the global context. Can you just tell us in a short minute how you see the positioning of Pakistan in contributing to global peace and stability?
Sir, let me remind the world that we at the moment, Pakistan contributes the largest contingent of soldiers to the UN Peace Force. And therefore our population and our position on that is a signal to the world that we can help wherever there is trouble. Second of all, yes, we like I said, our geostrategic position where economically is very vibrant and has a future, it has a past also. And the past happens to be the fault line of the empires. Afghanistan is rightly known as the graveyard of empires, and it has always been the fault line. That is where the Soviets lost, from Alexander to the Soviets, everybody lost their fiefdoms. Today, we are wrongly categorized. We are, in fact, the victims of terror. I myself am personally the victim of that terror, and I don't even qualify it as terror, I call it a war of mindset. My wife, as you know, all remember, late Shahid Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto, she was the leader and she was going to be the Prime Minister. In her name, now we have a Prime Minister and we have taken the presidency, and democracy is finding its place and taking root. So before the Arab Spring, before anything else could happen, I have also given away the powers that were taken away by the parliament to the presidency by a dictator. Those have been transferred back to the parliament. So where democracy is taking its place and finding its place, incidents, and I was just talking to you, Professor, when I came before, that individuals or individual groups should not, nations should not be hostage to their agenda. For example, even 9/11 per se, the world fell victim to a hostage to a mindset which was looking for the reaction, not the action. The action is one thing, the reaction is what one has to worry about. And I feel that the world till to date is still caught up in the recession world. There is still economical unease in the world because of the reaction to that action of 9/11. In the same instance in Pakistan, we are hoping and fighting against forces which are supported by a war weapon which was created in the world before our time called heroin. Now, while growing up and remembering and knowing the peace era, which is known as the Flower Children, we knew about drugs in the region, but heroin was introduced as a war weapon. Unfortunately, it still to date is not part of the NATO Charter, but it does start from my backyard and from our neighboring country, and the NATO does not take responsibility for it. And by some experts, it's more than 10 billion to 12 billion, and you can increase the figure as you go around the world. So it is a huge interest group again of the people who trade in this war weapon, and that is, their budget is even larger than my armed forces budget. So this is one factor among other political factors of the neighborhood and the remnants of the Second World War and the Cold War and the Soviet nations, and today Russia, and then the other countries. So it's all the remnants of a last world order which has not been able to transform itself into the new world order, or today's world order, which, like somebody described today, was totally different. It is not the capitalism, but it is talking about ideas and talking about innovative ideas.
Talentism.
Talentism.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mr. President, we are all together in the same boat in fighting terrorism, and you reminded us that you personally suffered from terrorism in probably in the severest way. So we were very fortunate to have you here, to hear your reassuring words. Pakistan has a potential, and on behalf of the participants, I want to thank you again for joining us, because Pakistan is an important neighbor. It's part of this region in the wider area. And you can be assured, at least I'm speaking here on behalf of the World Economic Forum, that you will have all our support in creating a future for such a large population of nearly 200 million people. So all our best wishes, and thank you again, Mr. President.
Thank you, Gandhi. Thank you, ladies.